Hello everybody, hope you're doing okay. Now the ASICS Novablast 4 here, I bought this shoe actually the back end of last year and I've done 66 miles in it, so a bit more than 2 strides. I thought about time I actually gave you some thoughts on it. Perhaps the fact I haven't said too much so far means it's kind of a bit of a boring shoe, to be honest. And I think to a certain extent I've always thought the Novablast is sort of been a rock and a hard place for me. I've had all 4 versions here. Version 1, which was perhaps the most loved one, and I did run it today, and I begin to wonder, well, actually, is this more like deja vu? What's the saying? Seeing things through rose-tinted glasses. And then I go into the Novablast 2, which I didn't do too many miles in at all. Then the Novablast 3, which I initially hated, but actually I've grown to sort of like a bit. And then into the Novablast 4. So yeah, I mean, for me, it's always been a shoe that's sort of like been a sort of a steady plodder, really. I don't know, Andy FOD runner used to rave about it, and I think he put them onto me, and he used to do all his sessions in it and stuff like that. And I remember during lockdown, the shoe came out, and I think back then the only other shoe that was sort of like a super shoe was like the Vaporfly Next Percent. So along with that one, it seemed like almost a perfect sort of training companion to the Next Percent. Had so much stack, and it was quite revolutionary having a shoe which was like soft and responsive. But I think over time, has it really sort of evolved into anything more than a steady plodder? I thought it was interesting when I compared the outsoles of the Novablast 1 to the Novablast 4, that I always thought the Novablast was a wide shoe, but that is actually now that the base of the 4 has got even wider than it used to be. It's about half a centimetre wider along here, and it's a full centimetre wider at the base. Seems to be the trend now with shoes as they go up in iterations, that this one was allegedly considered unstable by many runners, which I found very odd because I didn't have any stability problems in it at all. So I think as a result, they think, well, if they can sell more shoes by making it a bit wider at the base and a bit more structure to it, then maybe that will help. And also, it's a shoe that's gone through a lot of like weight changes. Initially, this was in my UK 13, 340 grams. It then got even heavier. I think they actually reduced the drop by from 10 mils in the original one down to 8. And this is now 355 in the 2. And then the 3 got very exciting. It even feels lighter just picking it up. This went down to 300 for me exactly in a UK 13. And then the 4 has gone back the other way. They've gone up to about 325. So they can't seem to really decide what it wants to be. I think when I tried the 3 on first of all, I was really disappointed because I thought such a light shoe, it was going to be like another endorphin speed. But I had an odd feeling of being a light shoe that felt heavy. And I think over time I managed to sort of get the lockdown really sort of tight. I mean, you can see how much to pull in the laces. And perhaps on the 4 I haven't had to pull them in quite as much, but still quite a lot. And then the actual laces here, I think I'm going to cut them because they are really like long, and I actually did cut them on the 3, so I've just got enough laces there. I used to do the double knot actually in the original ones. I think principally not because I needed the lockdown, but more just to hide the laces. And these laces were cheese cutter laces. I think the sort of laces you got out of Woolies back in the day, if you remember that, if you wanted a spare pair of laces, they really were terrible. So I think over time, definitely the upper has improved in the Novablast, but I think this sort of like feeling that it was a shoe that was like really poppy and exciting. I think as I said, I think that's just as time's moved on. I think people's memories of the shoes can perhaps be clouded by over time. As I said, when I went on the run today in this one, it felt no different really to the 4 and the 3. In terms of the difference between the 4 and the 3, well, other than the fact that the 4 is a bit heavier, you've got this Flight Foam Blast Eco stuff. I don't really like to talk too much about foam names because they're just brand names, but basically it means that the on-foot experience is just slightly firmer than the 3, and I also find it just slightly stiffer. I put up some footage of me jumping over the GoPro, but in the 3 I just felt like it was just more flex to it. It wasn't really the weight, although even just picking them up, you do feel that there's a slight weight difference there. But yeah, when they say the 4 has perhaps been tamed a bit, well, yes and no. I think it's just, is there a feeling that now they've got the Novablast 4 against the Superblast, then they need to make this a bit sort of like dumbed down a bit? I did 2 A/B tests. So I took out a 3 on one foot and the 4 on the other one and reversed it for the next run. And I did about an hour in each. And it wasn't too much difference. I did notice it was just a very fractionally firmer feeling in the 4, but not a bad feeling. And I was actually able to run along quite comfortably. and for a steady, easy run, it was sort of nice. But I do feel that there's just sort of so much sort of volume now to the actual shoe here in the base that it feels like it's just a shoe that takes up so much sort of landing space that for me, although it is a fairly light shoe, it just feels like it's a lot of effort to get it off the ground. It's a nice, bouncy, responsive feeling, but you do feel that you've got a daily trainer on rather than a super shoe because it doesn't feel like there's too much like get up and go in the shoe, as it were. Perhaps that's the whole point of it, but I think if an Novablast for you has always been a shoe that you wanted to do sort of fast stuff in it. Well, I don't think it really is now. And ASICS is a brand that I really do struggle with because they decide that they want to put out all these Metaspeeds and Superblast, but they don't want to make them in a UK 13 or bigger. So I'm kind of stuck with this or something horrendous like a Kayano. I think if I was have to wear a Kayano, it might be like in running hell, and I think this is like the worst thing that's ever happened to me. But anyway, so the Novablast is sort of there, almost as a shoe like I want to sort of try ASICS, but there's nothing else to really try. So maybe it's a shoe that I'll continue to use as I go along, but it serves as sort of a purpose for an odd day or two during the week where I just want to get out and a bit more cushioning on my feet. Perhaps compared to the Endorphin Speed, it complements it reasonably well because the Endorphin Speed isn't really a shoe to take out when you want a bit more cushioning under your foot. But equally, when I look at the paces I do in my runs, they often seem to be very similar. And I did some strides last night when I was wearing a 3 and a 4, and you can actually get up to speed, which I think it often says with a lot of shoes that it's more you than the shoe. Because when you really want to put some effort in, well, yeah, you go and the shoe just comes along with you. But yeah, not a shoe that I would definitely want to be taking out for sessions for sure. But for like easy runs from an hour or up to about an hour and a half, I think it's good. I think the most I ever did in the Novablast 1 was about 15 miles. And I took this out for about an hour and a half, I think is the most I've got so far. So yeah, is the Novablast a shoe that you're continuing to use? Are you more of a Superblast fan if you can actually fit in them? What about these new Metaspeeds Paris shoes? Are you keen to get those? I see that Seguso Running will hopefully be doing a review of them, and he can tell us the difference between the Edge and the Sky. The most confusing marketing from any brand, I think. Put out a shoe that looks identical, even have identical stack heights. Talking of stack heights, I remember this one is 41.5 at the back and 33.5 at the front, so it's an 8mm drop. Originally, it was a 10mm drop, and I think when they went to the 2, they actually reduced the drop down to 8 to make it more stable. And I think they've kept the 8 drop as well. I think also ASICS have started to change the way that they measure their stack height. So this is technically an illegal shoe for racing, although who would want to race in this shoe is beyond me with so many other better options these days. But if you wanted to race in anything, of course you could. And it wouldn't be too bad, I guess. Or in terms of fit, I should point out that the Novablast is also a shoe that I felt is like quite long. When I took the insoles out, they actually are 32.5 centimetres. All my other shoes are in the UK 13 or 13.5, US 14, are actually 32 centimetres. So for some reason, ASICS' sort of sizing model is a bit different. They say their centimetre size is a 31 centimetre, but I think that more means like the target size of the foot. So my feet are actually 30.2 exactly, and that means that presumably people up to a foot length of 31 could fit in these, which kind of makes sense because I did actually try the UK 12 in the Novablast 3, and I could just about run in it. It was a fraction too short, and this may be a fraction too long. So I thought the ideal shoe was perhaps the 12.5 in the middle that don't do. But anyway, over time, perhaps this is a shoe that I initially hated and I've grown to like a bit more. But if I had to choose between the 3 and the 4, I think I'd actually go for the 3. Just a bit lighter, just feels a bit more flexible. This one just sort of feels like it's just like, oh, just a bit too much, a bit too rigid perhaps, but not too bad. And it's quite a nice upper, and I do like this colour, don't I? Anyway, hope you found this interesting. Like and subscribe on that, and see you on the next one then. Bye.